Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Welcome, Jess Leader, to the Focus on Why podcast.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on the show. A lady who wears many hats in property, in marketing, and in charity volunteering.
Yes, it's true. I think we all wear quite a lot of hats in what we do, but those are my three.
Fantastic. So just give us a bit of an insight of what it is you're currently doing.
In a nutshell, at the moment, I co-run a marketing startup, which is in London, which operates across England. And I run a small property portfolio of my own, which I'm growing. And until just a couple of weeks ago, I was working as a board director on a mental health charity, which has now merged into another one. So that's gone for now until I can find a similar position elsewhere.
So how do all three of those fold into each other?
I'm sure we'll go into it in quite a lot of detail, Amy, but as a top level, I'd say they all kind of tick different boxes for me in terms of either what interests me or makes me feel like I'm sort of being fulfilled, I suppose, as a person. There's a lot of, I suppose, when you look at them as just separate entities, the things that link them are, they will have a huge element of commercial responsibility and kind of aptitude to them. So sort of in the marketing side, managing budgets, same with property. And obviously when you're looking at a charity at strategic level, that is a very common theme. And then particularly across the marketing and property side, it's about scratching my creative itch and being able to work in a creative, visual, expressive way.
So have you always had that access to both left and right brain?
Yeah, I think it would be, for me anyway, it would be boring. I love a good analysis and a good spreadsheet and really getting into the detail of things. But for me, it'd be boring if it was only about that. Working in a marketing agency, you're in a budget meeting 1 minute and then you're looking at creative concepts, perhaps the same in an hour later. And without that variety, it would just feel very, very dry for me. And I love equally, I suppose, in my own life, I love looking at Pinterest as much as I love planning something, my own budget or something, I love both.
That's fantastic. So tell me a bit about how your marketing career evolved.
So when I was at school, really, as soon as I was about 14 and we were having class trips and things, I knew straight away that I wanted to be an event manager. And so from about that age, I did everything that I could to get experience working in events. And that was either paid or unpaid junior roles or volunteering for things at the school or the college or whatever. And then when I went to university, I was reasonably dedicated, but more so focused on how can I get experience in events. So didn't get the best degree I could have in the world, but I came out with some brilliant experience, which got me my first job. And so after I finished, I moved to London and I started working in my first job, by complete coincidence, was in a startup commercial property brokerage in West End with a bit of marketing assistant role. And then I moved into much more focused marketing roles. Everything was like a stepping stone. And for the first sort of 5 years, maybe 8 years of my marketing career, everything for me was about the next step. What's the next promotion? What's the next responsibility I can take on? What's the next pay rise? And for me, very much it was about kind of a title change. What status can I achieve for myself? And what can I prove to the outside world that I'm capable of being? And that was very much how my marketing career started.
And what did your friends think about that at the time?
I'm surprised they didn't give up on me completely. It was very normal for me to message and say, I'm still not coming, I'm still late for dinner, I'm still late, I'm still not coming, I'm still not coming. So yeah, I did definitely choose my career for the first sort of 8 years probably of my post uni life, or probably starting before then. But at the same time, that commercial and financial focus served me well, because having whilst I did still have friends who still didn't give up on me, I still had a social life. I didn't go to everything. I was saving up very much as well, and I knew that I wanted to get my first home. So when I was living in London, I eventually did buy my first home, which my friends at that point were obviously very, very proud of me and pleased for me. But yeah, they were very aware that they would always describe me as a focused person, even now.
So you've always had that drive and you've always had that focus. What's led you to move into the property space from marketing?
I think there were a few things that fell into place at the same time, and so I decided that was kind of a sign, and I should follow that instinct. So partly working in marketing is very exhausting. I know there are a lot of industries which are, but people who work in the event, in the events industry, it's very known that you do reach burnout in events. It can be very, very long hours. You can very much be at your client's beck and call, which isn't a pleasant feeling if you've got one who's enjoying that. And you just get to the point where you think, why am I doing this, and how far do I want to take this for myself? Is this what I want to be? Is this what I want to be known for in life? So I kind of got sick of my life being out of my control. And at the same time, I was consciously looking for something else that I could own for myself and grow for myself and control for myself. At the same time, I had bought my home in southwest London, and I was looking at selling it, and it had made quite a lot of money. I'd managed to buy in a really good pocket, which the agent told me was up and coming. And yeah, actually it was. With a bit of research, I turned out to buy well, and it did make me quite a bit of money. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit sick of not controlling my own life. I'm actively seeking something that I can build for myself and control for myself and be proud of doing for myself. And then now I've got this little pocket of money. So those three came together, and I thought, okay, I'm going to rinse and repeat this house thing, and I'm going to look and see what I can do with it. And I think another thing, similarly to how in my marketing career, I'd always been thinking of, what can I prove to myself I can do? How can I push myself to the next level again? In property, I thought, okay, let's see what I can do here, and what can I show myself I can do.
And why is it important for you to be so determined to be independent like that?
I've always been very independent. I've always wanted to have financial independence. It's very, very important to me. I think, it's a bit stubborn actually, but I do think it serves me. I think it comes from when I was younger, when I was a teenager. My parents had separated long before, and my mum was in quite an unhealthy relationship, and we all lived there. And we couldn't leave because my mum was, we wouldn't have had really anywhere else to live if mum had taken her and us away from that environment, which she needed to do. But so we were stuck really. And although I didn't immediately, as a sort of 16-year-old, I didn't at that point go, I need to have a house. I knew very much at that point that I didn't want to be financially dependent on anybody else, because I could see that was the reason mum was stuck, because she didn't have any money to take us away. So yeah, financial independence has always been an absolute must in my life.
So it actually served you that.
It has. It
Yeah.
has. Yeah.
So building your property portfolio now and seeing that you are very determined to prove what you can do, what is it you want to achieve?
That's kind of changed actually. I've been working in property for, I think, 3 years, something like 3 years. And it's changed over that time, as I've changed, really. Obviously, I'm still me, but what was important to me then isn't necessarily what's important to me now. And I can see that change in focus in the few years that I've worked in property. So going back to when I started in property, I was working full-time in marketing agency, and I was still very much all about I guess it's about living for external approval or internal approval. I guess it's about that. At the beginning, I was very much focused on what's my status? What can I do? What can I be? And it was all about what I was doing. And as a result of that, when I started in property, I had all these, the goals that I had were very, they were still quite statusy in terms of what was important to me about what I could say I had acquired or achieved or earned, etc. However, over the last sort of couple of years, that's become much less important to me as a person. I think in a lot of ways, I've stopped caring actually as much about what I have done. And instead, it's become much, much more important to me to think about why I'm doing it or how I'm doing it. And by that, I mean, am I satisfied doing this? Does this make me happy? Or am I just doing it to prove it to somebody? That might be me, or it might be somebody else, but why am I doing it? Am I sort of satisfying my values doing this? Am I working with people who I respect and like and feed me, instead of people that I'm hungry for approval or promotion from? And so as I've switched from caring about one set of metrics to another, I think what I've tried to do in property has changed as well. So now, and it links much more to the charity side, it's much less about, yes, of course, don't get me wrong, I want to make money from property, but money isn't because it's a status anymore. It's because when I have money, I can make choices about how I spend my time and how I support other initiatives, or how I grow up with my family and that kind of thing. So it's very much about what value can I bring through property instead of the just numbers and stats and facts.
And how have you come to that conclusion, Jess? What's helped you sort of transition into this new phase of your life?
I don't know if I could say one. I don't know if there's one particular incident or moment that caused that to happen. I think certainly kind of working in marketing agencies and thinking this is bollocks, like helping companies sell more shit doesn't really change the world. Like there's a part of that definitely that I started to get very dissatisfied with. And actually now the kind of marketing that I do, I work in a live event marketing business, and we do live events and experiential campaigns, and that's about connection between people. And so that's where I started, and the middle part of my career was all about digital marketing, performance marketing, metrics, online campaigns, and it was all very different. And so I've come back to very consciously working in the part of marketing which is about people connecting with people, and that, so I think that's another result of this slight shift in what I'm looking for. I think, as I said, there isn't a turning point, but I think just starting to realize that what other people think of me doesn't really matter as much as what I think of me. I'm living my life. I have to be happy with it. And getting value from adding value is so much more to me. It just gives me so much more pride in what I'm doing. Now, don't get me wrong. As I say, I'm in property to make money, and I make it for myself, and I make it for the people who invest in me, and whose funds I help to grow. But that doesn't mean it's soulless.
So what about the tenant side? How does that fit in with your?
Yeah, so I that was quite interesting because I realised going through the process of preparing for our conversation and getting my thoughts together, I realised that there was a big link for me in the tenant care. So, as I mentioned before, I realised that financial independence for my own safety was very, very important to me. And as a result of that, I realised that, when I first bought my first home, I realised that I'd created my haven, and I just felt safe. I'd worked for a thing, I'd got the thing, and I was in it, and I felt really, really safe. And I have felt like that in the homes that I've bought since my first home, and that is so valuable to me. And I realised, looking back, that actually the kind of relationship. Well, I have a lettings manager, so I don't have a direct relationship with all of my tenants, but I do know people in the houses, and it's so important to me that they feel that they matter. That I've created an environment that they feel safe in. If they've got a problem, they can raise it and they'll be heard. And I want them to feel safe, comfortable, and happy in their homes. Obviously, there's a commercial bonus to that, in that they stay longer, but ultimately, if I've made somebody feel safe and that they've got somewhere to just completely be themselves in and nurtured in, I'm really happy with that. And I realised I realised that there's a massive link in what a house means to me. And so that's really, it means safety. And so that's really what's driving me forward now, is that wanting to move away from, or no, wanting to add to my property portfolio in a way that really supports people in the world who don't have that feeling right now of safety, and somewhere they can just, breathe in. And that is the biggest motivator in what I'm doing at the moment.
Absolutely. And looking after people and making them feel safe is ticking your boxes from your own personal perspective, but it's a bigger picture. As you're thinking bigger picture, you're not just thinking about the scenario of serving yourself. You're thinking about how you're going to add value on a bigger scale, what legacy you're going to be leaving in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, because if I think of growing my property portfolio, there's a lot involved in that, and which and it can be quite exhausting when you drive your business yourself. It can be. There's a lot to think about, and as motivating as it can at times be a little like, okay, there's a lot to do, which is why partnerships and teams come in so massively importantly. But if I spin that in my own mind and I think, well, actually, how many people can I give that feeling to? I don't feel overwhelmed at all. I feel like urgent. I can't do it quick enough. So it changes how I feel about it completely. It's so motivating. And I don't expect that everybody who chooses to invest in me will have that motivation. And so again, it's about blending the commercial with the value, but I can still get that out of it for me. And I will have a mixed portfolio, but I would be so proud of myself by providing that for people and just feel such satisfaction.
So how much is emotional and how much is financial driven in what you do?
I think that's a good question. What I look for will probably be driven by the purpose, and then what I decide to do will be based on what stacks. Like, I'm still a really commercial person, and I'm quite risk averse. I'm very analytical and methodical, and my mentor often mocks me for it. But it has to stack. I take other people's money very seriously, and when they're trusting me with it, then it's more than my name's worth to not return it in the way that I've said.
And you mentioned you got a mentor. How much has your mentor helped you?
Oh my gosh, mostly in confidence, and mostly in actually just going for it a little bit. And it's interesting because I heard someone else say the other day, they looked back on their on deals that they had turned down in the past. And I'd actually recently done a similar thing in clearing out some files. I found loads of odd details of properties that I'd viewed and not bought. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, I would do that deal now. But it's like having someone like my mentor go, just help me, just push me over the line with a few more things, or think about things that I haven't thought of, because you can't think of everything yourself. But if you've got people to help you ask the right questions, then you can get there.
And how do you go about acquiring new knowledge? What do you do to sort of improve your skill set?
I don't know if I'm conscious of it because it's such a part of my day-to-day life. I listen to audiobooks, I attend networking meetings, I listen to webinars, I read articles, I go to events in market. I'm talking about in marketing and property here, so that applies to both. I talk to people because everybody's got different knowledge, so just ask. One thing that I've learned as well as as I've kind of got older is to put the ego aside a bit, and I would much rather ask than sit there and go, don't know. So just ask. But I am quite a knowledge hungry person. So yeah.
Why do you think people are resistant of asking for help?
It's vulnerability, isn't it? I think one of the things, and actually, I don't know if I was seeking that or if it caused some of the change in my perspective of what's important to me. But a lady that I read quite a lot of has been the very famous Brene Brown, and I think she's shifted me a bit from such a masculine energy of the attitude that I had around what success was and what was important to me. I think reading her books and listening to her talks has had a huge impact in how open I am, actually, and more determined in a constructive way, I think, rather than a stubborn way.
In terms of where you were in working in event management, which was very draining, and you weren't doing things on your own terms. Now you're living your life on your own terms, and you're carving your own path using the things that you've brought together over the years, and really focusing on what really is important to you. And I know you said that prepping for this was actually quite a good way of you focusing and reaffirming what's right for you. But what is it you're now going to be achieving? What are you going to try for next?
What I really want to create for myself now is it sort of comes back to one of the reasons why I started in property, but also has grown since then so much as well. So one of the reasons that I started in property was because I wanted to have the freedom to so that when I started a family, I wouldn't have to choose between my baby and my brain. I was very much used to working in an environment. There was some female board representation, but really not that much. And even all the time now still, despite growing efforts, there are still women who have sort of parked their growth by choosing to have a family. And so that was a motivator for me to be financially independent and create my own way of working so that I wouldn't be a person who had to make that choice. And that's still very much the case. But now I'm seeing more and more female leaders and business owners who are successfully doing both. That inspires me very much to not feel that I can't have both. And I want to provide the sanctuary for as many people as I can, whilst providing a flourishing environment for my family, my future family. So, I don't see one limiting the other, and I very much want to create nurturing in both of those very much. And I think the more I see problems, the more I feel driven to work in a way to address them. And so that vision, I hope, will just continue to grow, and what I can contribute to it. In terms of what I spend my time on, I do. So at the moment, I still work across the different fields, as I said. Having a property income has allowed me to not work full-time in marketing anymore. I would probably like to take that down another peg and swing the weight more towards property, because by doing that, it's in property that I can create something for myself, continue to do that, and continue to build the flexibility. But again, my marketing job is in a startup run by a woman who was also having the same dissatisfaction with limitations on female leaders. And so we have a very flexible way of working. But for me, the more I can control for myself and the more I can drive for myself, that will definitely tick my pride, growth, learning, ambition, self-sufficiency kind of motivators, definitely.
I wonder whether if you hadn't made so much money on that London property, if you would be on the course that you're on now.
It's funny, isn't it? You do think, what were the turning points? I mean, I would have been doing something at the time that I started learning about property. I had started working with a network marketing company, so I already knew very much that I wanted to create something for myself, and it was by doing that, to your point that one thing leads to another and where would your path go, it was by doing that I started focusing so much. That really introduced me to personal development and reading so much and learning so much about other options, because until then I'd really only been in an employment model. And so I discovered network marketing, and that led me into learning more about what I could do and opening my own mind to the choices that I had. I don't work in network marketing at the moment, but I've moved quite quickly onto property, but that led me to the personal development, which led me to the property, which led, and that's led me to charity, which is refocusing my property work. So everything leads to it and to the next thing. But I think, I've mentioned to you in the past that because I've got so many different interests, and because, as you pointed out, I've got the left brain and the right brain kind of motivators. Although a lot of decisions that I've made in my career have been very deliberate, I might sometimes perceive my own self as a little bit scattergun in the things that I've tried, because I've wanted to try different things to see where they led me. But in getting my thoughts together for this, I was looking back and seeing that, I think it was Steve Jobs that's made the comment about it's only with hindsight that you can see how the dots join up for you, and that's very much what's happened. I think no one has a career for life anymore, and the skills that we have serve us well in the next one. So that's what's happening.
Absolutely. And I'm a strong believer, and you are exactly where you need to be right now in terms of everything that has happened in the past has got you to where you are today, but you have the option to choose where you want to go from now. And I think that, you're definitely on an exciting journey, that you are carving your own path, which is absolutely incredible. I really loved having you on the show, Jess, and it's been fantastic. How are people getting in contact with you if they wanted to reach out?
The easiest way is to find me on Instagram. I'm Jess_leader, or I'm on LinkedIn, Jessica Leader, or through Next Level Living, nlliving.co.uk. So they're the easiest ways.
Brilliant. I'll put those in the show notes in case you didn't get them. So, Jess, what message would you like to leave the audience today, having shared your personal journey with everybody? What would you like to say to people out there?
It's quite hard to drill it down into one closing thought, but I think I would probably implore people who are listening to do the thing they want to do, whether that's leaving a certain situation or trying to go it alone in your career, or massively changing direction of what you're doing. Don't let the reason for not doing it be fear. If you're frightened of what somebody will think of you, or you're frightened of whether you can or you can't, or you're frightened of your physical environment, just try anyway and see what happens, because usually the reason that you want to do something is because it's the right thing. So I would implore us all and continue to remind myself to do those things anyway and see where they take us.
Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and become a member of the inspiring, uplifting, and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.